Unit 12, Gateway. A variety of theoretical perspectives provide insight into immigration. Economics, which assumes that actors engage in utility maximization, represents one framework. From this perspective, it is assumed that individuals are rational actors, i.e., that they make migration decisions based on their assessment of the costs as well as benefits of remaining in a given area versus the costs and benefits of leaving. Benefits may include, but are not limited to short-term and long-term monetary gains, safety, and greater freedom of cultural expression. People with greater financial benefits tend to use their money to show off their social status by purchasing luxurious items. Individual costs include, but are not limited to the expense of travel, uncertainty of living in a foreign land, difficulty of adapting to a different language, uncertainty about a different culture, and the great concern about living in a new land. Psychic costs associated with separation from family, friends, and the fear of the unknown also should be taken into account in cost-benefit assessments. Exercise 1. In ancient times, travel across the oceans was a dangerous business. Ships could not navigate far from the shore. They traveled slowly with their small sails or crews of slaves at the oars, and their maps were poor. Most ancient civilizations were land-based and sent their armies, not navies, into battle. Only a few cultures, such as the Phoenicians in the eastern Mediterranean or the Greeks sailing between their many islands, developed a significant sea-based culture. Even seafaring cultures, such as the Phoenicians, who had the first decent maps, had no way of determining their east-west longitude and precisely positioning themselves on those maps. The essential purpose of map-making was the creation of the most exact reflection of reality, or the graphically true representation of space. Thus, they sailed only short distances across open water and close to the shoreline whenever possible. Exercise 2. The wording of positive, neutral, and negative feedback should be tailored to the ability levels and personality of the student. Tutors tend to be reluctant to give negative feedback, even when the student's contributions are incorrect. They tend to be polite rather than giving face-threatening feedback that runs the risk of lowering the student's confidence. DeMello and Gresser have reported that students with low knowledge learn STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics topics better with supportive, emphatic feedback. E.g., I know the material is difficult. Most students miss this. You can get this if you keep trying. Then with short, clear, unemotional feedback. That's incorrect. The learning environment is likely to be affected by an ambitious and maybe higher competitive climate among peers. In contrast, high-knowledge learners actually showed lower learning from these emphatic short responses, perhaps because they appear artificial or patronizing. Once again, intelligent adaptation of the short feedback to the learner is important. Exercise 3. Prejudice often informs unjust discrimination. Although it must be acknowledged that there can be positive prejudice towards a particular group, it is more frequently defined as holding hostile or negative attitudes towards individuals solely on the basis of their group membership rather than their own merits. Prejudices are based on the perceived threat, whether social, cultural, physical, or economic, posed by each group. Hence, older people and disabled people, who may be perceived as less threatening, may experience what could be seen as benevolent prejudice based on kindly intent. People's prejudiced attitudes towards other groups also differ according to the type of interaction taking place. However, this can be experienced as patronizing and demeaning to the person subjected to it. Even apparently mild, benevolent forms of prejudice can translate into attitudes that negatively affect the treatment and prospects of such groups. Exercise 4. Digital journalism is a difficult concept to define precisely because it can mean different things to different people. In fact, The term is a juxtaposition of old and new concepts. Journalism, as we know it in the West, goes back at least 2 millennia with the appearance of the acta diurna, daily events, official texts of general interest handwritten and publicly posted in ancient Rome during the time of Julius Caesar. However, traditional newspapers are getting signals that their industry is in decline, especially from the younger generation of these days. Conversely, digitization, the process of converting information to computer-readable format, was born in the age of the electronic computer during the 20th century and requires advanced technology for distribution and display. Taken together, these two words suggest an old practice in a new context, a synthesis of tradition and innovation. Exercise 5. The visual channel in speech and music contains information about the performer's emotional intent. It was once thought that bodily position encoded the emotional state, while movement only encoded the magnitude of that state. However, recent research has shown that adding movement to a presentation adds cues about the emotional state. When comparing dynamic to static presentations, emotional attributions were more accurate in the dynamic presentations, while attributions were above chance in the static condition, with the correct emotion chosen more often than any incorrect one. Adding motion helped to refine these attributions and distinguish emotions with shared bodily positions. As such, many trained singers, especially in the classical genre, are instructed to limit their range of motion as much as possible while performing. For example, happy and angry scenes both involved raised arms, but the quality of the motion in raising those arms distinguishes the two emotions. Exercise 6. When a painter is working for a patron, as Leonardo da Vinci did for the Medici, there can be emotional communication resulting from the artist's intention to produce something that the patron will appreciate and enjoy. Even Vincent van Gogh, who was isolated and sold few paintings in his life, cared about the reactions of his brother to the paintings that he produced. Some artists often take pains concerning the framing and presentation of their work for the benefit of the viewers of their art, such as when Mark Rothko was highly particular about the lighting of his paintings. So painting is a social process involving the communication of emotional judgments of the artist to the people who view it. For objects and colors, there is an important social dimension because people are often attracted to things they find familiar, through what psychologists call the mere exposure effect. Painters cannot expect viewers to appreciate their work with exactly the same perceptions and emotions that went into their creation, but they can hope to generate some approximation of these. Exercise 7. With respect to Shakespeare, several versions of the story of King Lear were available when he wrote the play. According to most scholars, he brought together at least two sources, one of which was the 1587 histories of Holinshed, which he consulted for a number of his plays, and the other a popular, anonymously written play produced 12 years earlier, titled The True Chronicle History of King Lear and His Three Daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. Here, the actions of simply bringing together, blending, or combining the two sources do not account for the creation of Shakespeare's drama, King Lear. Elements of Lear's blindness, his belief in Cordelia's betrayal, the poetic descriptions of the tragedy of aging, and of course the character and language constructions themselves are all individually distinct, as well as connected entities within the overall integration. During the course of the last 400 years, Shakespeare's plays have been amended and interpreted to suit the mood of contemporary production. These qualities and many others produce the integrated literary work, King Lear, with attributes of both newness and value. Exercise 8. The voice dominates all sound, and whether it is spoken word or lyrics, language will grab attention from music. If the voice is used, It should create meaningless sounds or be simple words or phrases, which will have minimal impact on the music. Text displayed as words will also distract attention from the music, because words are read and interpreted. If language, spoken or written, is used in the instrumental music concert, it should be limited to pauses between the music, or before or after the music. The poetical statement that music is the universal language of mankind is indicative of the communicative quality of music, and at the same time is indicative of the elusive nature of whatever it is that music communicates. Activities, such as the pre-concert talk or comments between pieces, add value to the music listening experience, but they must be separate from the music. Otherwise, the performance may become a multimedia event, and the music may be backgrounded.